Getting there. All right, we are live. Welcome everybody to Digitize HQ. I get the pleasure of introducing everybody today. I'm Brandon Lee. I'm the founder of Funnel Amplified, but we have a great group of people and we have a really awesome conversation that we're going to have with you today. So today's topic is really important. We all have examples from just this past week of sales professionals, even customer success leaders that were talking to us about what do we do? Cold calls don't seem to be working. Our email cadences don't seem to be working as well as they used to. We're feeling stuck. There's got to be something else. So today's discussion, never cold call again, question marks, up in your game with digital selling. So let's get all the panelists introduced. I'm going to start, Susan. I got you right in front of me here. Do you want to introduce yourself to everybody?
Sure. I'm Susan Berger, and I formerly was with an analytics software company called SAS for 20 years. And for 5 of those years, I helped enable our sales staff and others to digitally engage and create relationships to result in revenue opportunities. And I'm still doing that full time now.
Awesome. Thanks, Susan. Mike, how about you? You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, good morning, everybody. My name is Mike Aldrich. I am a former owner of a Sandler sales and management training company, consulting here in Orlando. And currently I'm leading a team of 10 sales guys in the residential modular company. And this is a topic that has always been top of mind. And one of the most asked questions, both in my consulting career and in my current career, is how do we get people to respond? And I'm excited to be a part of this conversation as the world is evolving and changing, and we've got to go with it.
Very nice. Thanks, Mike. And last but certainly not least, Mr. Thomas.
Well, hello, everybody. I'm Thomas Ross, and I am the CRO for Funnel Amplified. And I've been involved in sales and marketing and training and introducing new concepts and process for digital training for quite some time. And this topic today is near and dear to my heart. And as Mike said, it is a question we literally answer pretty much every day, right? From various people within any organization. So Susan, I'll leave you to sort of lay it all out for us.
All right, the why. I work with a lot of people that are salespeople, that are experts, that want to reach a wide group of people so that they can, create revenue opportunities. And that's where the salespeople need to go. And that is social channels. The world has gone digital. Emailing and cold calling is not working. Look at the stats. But if you Google, how successful social sellers are, you're going to get a lot of results and tons of stats that talk about how successful you can be. So we're in the digital age. The pandemic has actually sped it up even more. People are still not traveling. So you have to go where your customers are, and the customers are online, and the customers are doing a lot of individual research before they even reach out to a vendor. So you need to learn what the techniques are and what are the best practices to engage with your customers and prospects online.
Absolutely.
I think that's really the crux of it. And there are specific, which we're going to go into today. It's not just transferring cold calling and asking for the meeting methods over to social. It's not an inherent skill. I feel it needs to be trained and honed. And more companies need to get on board with enabling their sales organization how to do it effectively.
Yeah, I would agree with that whole.
Hey guys, I'm going to interrupt you just because it's not streaming.
Oh no.
And I can't figure out why. At least, yeah, it looks like your stream is not showing up on LinkedIn. Okay, so we're streaming everywhere except for LinkedIn.
Really?
So, I will
It
give
says
some
try
messages to
ending
everybody.
It says try ending this broadcast and creating a new one,
Oh,
but
no.
that's going to make a mess. Or just
Yep.
remove this destination from the broadcast and re-add it, but that's going to make a mess.
Yep.
I think we just continue.
So, yeah, just continue. KP just posted the link to Facebook, and I will post the link in there to.
Sure.
I will post the link in there to YouTube as well. So go ahead and keep going, and I'll help everybody get caught up.
All right. Well, great. I appreciate that. I was just going to say, Susan, that I couldn't agree with you more. But the key to learning anything, because you made the right point there, that in fact it's a new skill set, and it's a number of new skill sets. It's not just one, and it's not just one platform, whether that be LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter or TikTok. It really doesn't matter. It's not about any one of them. It's of course about all of them. But at the end of the day, what's always worked in sales will always work in sales, and that's a term that we call cadence. And cadence revolves around taking the steps that you need to take in order to start and begin conversations with people of importance that you know are important in your customer accounts, or in fact your customers at all, right? And that process, that is to say the cadence, is what's changed. Having a cadence will never change, right? You always have to take the right steps in order to have impact and be able to reach the people you need to reach in a consistent and productive way. What's changed is what those steps are. And that's where social and digital come into play, right? And that's the critical component that most people miss. We're not saying that sales now needs to be thrown out the window the way you knew it, and you need to do it this way. We're saying there's a couple of steps that have changed in your sales cadence, and we need to build those in now in order for the process that you've probably developed over many years to continue to chug along and do the job for you. And so we need to create a digital sales cadence and sales steps that we need to take, if that makes sense to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Well, I think as people dive into the digital world, the trouble that we fall into is when you're cold calling, if you're actually lucky enough to have somebody answer the call, you immediately dive in with your 30-second commercial. You're trying to tell them how great your product is. You're talking, you're not even breathing. You're just shoving that information out there because when you stop talking, the individual that answered the phone is just trying to get off the phone. So when we move to a digital platform, we got to resist the urge to do the same thing. And I can't tell you, if I could share my screen, every day I get a LinkedIn message from somebody that's selling me something right off the bat. They're telling me how they're going to improve my sales 10x. They don't even know who I am or what I'm doing. And obviously I'm not responding to those either. So the cadence, Thomas, you're talking about is slowly getting to know this individual that you're trying to develop a professional relationship with, being interested in them and resisting the urge to say how great we are and our products are. Time and a place for that. But it's not cold calling where you're trying to jam 30 seconds into 5 because you can't believe somebody actually answered the phone in today's world. It's a different, slower cadence where you're developing a real relationship.
Well, and so salespeople, in my experience, I was part of a sales organization, a large one for 17 years. Your first response will be, well, I have these MBOs, I have these KPIs, I have to get this many calls, this many meetings. So it's hard, but you have to do it. You have to sort of push back and say, I'm going to learn to do it where the customers are and do it the right way and deal with that pressure, right? Because salespeople, the quarter doesn't stop. So salespeople are being pressured. But as you start to get positive results and sales start increasing and opportunities and leads start increasing, more people get on board, right?
Yeah, we all have MBOs and KPIs. It's what managers do, right? But there's never been a salesperson who couldn't sell themselves out of an issue. So if you're going to go a different way, what we really want as sales leaders is money. We want revenue. That's what we do.
Right.
We create revenue, we create product, we create sales. And if you can do it in a more comfortable environment, leveraging digital, growing and expanding your customer base, I don't know a manager out there that's going to have a problem with that.
Yep.
You're just going to have to get there and show your success.
Well, and I think one of the things, and obviously this is kind of heavy towards Funnel Amplified, but it's heavy towards Funnel Amplified because we followed the need. But it's how do you validate the social activity? So, Mike, as you said, managers want revenues. I got a message from an SDR this week who will say remain nameless, and you'll know why. But he sent me this message and he said, "Okay, help me understand. Cold calls rarely result in a booked meeting. Sometimes I can get a little bit of information, but very, very rarely does it result in a booked meeting. Cold emails, the same thing, rarely works in a booked meeting. And yet my leadership is just saying, up the numbers, more calls, more emails." And he said, it sounds very desperate and it's wearing out the sales team. What do you think about it? And I said, that's the exact problem. But it comes down to, I think a lot of sales leaders, they need their metrics, they need their MBOs, they need their KPIs, but they don't have the vision to see that you can validate social engagement with date, time stamps, and document that the activity took place as a substitution for it. I think that's one of the biggest problems with sales leaders, allowing social to be used as something valuable versus playing on LinkedIn. What do you guys think?
Well, first, sales leaders, I'm not throwing everybody in the same pot, but they have to understand the difference between social media branding, because a lot of times when I hear from sales reps that I'm working with, they say, well, my manager says our marketing department handles social selling. No, it doesn't. It's totally different. Social selling to me is helping the trenches, each rep who owns that target, learning how to properly find the best targets, engage with them so as not to have them cancel because they're trying to get a meeting on the first engagement, and educating them on the value that you bring so that you build that trusted relationship that gets that first true conversation. So I think the first step is a lot of sales leaders and organizations don't understand really what social selling enablement entails. Would you guys agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the steps and the cadence that we're talking about, irrespective of the point that Brandon made, and we need to come back to that, is what's critical. And you can't know the steps if you think your team is playing on LinkedIn, right? So there's a starting point, and that starting point is to educate the leaders and the management on what the process is as you create it for that team. But I can tell you, and we've seen this more and more, the teams are now reaching out to do it themselves because they realize that they're not getting the support from their managers, and they're still getting the same old, and they're not going to hit their quotas. So they have two choices. They can either walk with their feet, right? Or they can do something about it on their own and take some of these things into their own hands and start to do the things they know may work better for them. And in so doing, they now start to show the very organization that's not supporting them, right, the very things that can help that organization overall. And now you've got a manager and a team looking over at Bob or Mary or Sue and saying, what are they doing? Wow, they're getting great results. Nobody else is getting those kind of results. What are they doing differently? That's right. And as that becomes the focus, they go and they say, wow, that's an interesting approach. How do we build that in as a team and as an organization? And therein comes a new cadence and new steps that can be taken using digital and social with respect to their needs. Now, and this is the thing, and this is true in every sales cadence or process, and that is every organization is different. Your customers are not the same as my customers, right? And the way you reach them and how you do that isn't exactly the same. So whether you're using this platform or that platform or this kind of engaging content or that kind of engaging content or the ways you reach out to them after they've connected, they all can vary, right? So that cadence needs to be built to match what it is you're doing. And just to make it even more fun, that changes because customers continue to change. So you need to be on top of that and to evolve with it. But today, real conversations like the one we're having right now are happening online in real time. And if all you're doing is dialing for dollars, good luck with that.
Well, when you think about cold calling, you're really not cold calling, you're cold message leaving, because no one answers the phone anymore. When robo dialers came on the scene 4 or 5 years ago, that ruined it. It took that away. So the question that we always get is, how do you get someone to return a message? Because if they do answer, they answer by mistake. And all they're trying to do is say, how long do I need to be on here before I can hang up on this individual who isn't breathing because you're talking so much, you're not able to engage. And the answer is, and ask your manager this question: what does it take for you to return a cold message? Right. And the answer is going to be nothing, because we don't have time for that. But the world will tell you how they want to communicate. If you're familiar with DISC at all, DISC, it's about the 4 major communication patterns. And whoever you're targeting will tell you how to communicate with them if you just pay attention. If you're in a restaurant, you see everybody texting or Instagram, or on Facebook. You go where the fish are. You got to get the boat out of the dock. And cold calling isn't going to work, because now listen, if you make 100 cold calls, you might actually get a conversation, but it's called working smarter, not harder. Make life easier for you. Sales is tough. Go where your clients are and communicate how they want to be communicated with. They'll appreciate you for doing that.
And where can you, by sitting in your chair, not spending travel dollars, where can you reach the most people that might be interested in what you have to offer? Social channels allow you to have this exponential possible reach. So if you are someone that is able to get your message out there and throw the net wider, then it just stands to reason, numbers are numbers, that you're going to have more success, especially if you build a cadence and educate and prove your value to those that are viewing your content, right? So you have this opportunity to reach hundreds of thousands. I think the last count I saw on LinkedIn was there's over 750 million profiles on LinkedIn. Now, not everybody's on LinkedIn every day, but they're going to go online if they're going to be searching for something, a product or a vendor. They're going to start there because they don't want to talk to 10 vendors right away. They want to find out who they can trust and who might be a trusted partner and advisor. So those are 2 points in there. You've got this great ocean of opportunity there without spending a lot of money. It's your time investment. And you've got the ability to create messages that speak to the people you want to reach.
Yeah. And I think it goes, I mean, there's a more active part of that too, that I think, which is actually going out and engaging with other people. I think that initially, whatever it was, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, it doesn't really matter. The concept of social selling, which we know is a term that all 4 of us don't really like, but the concept was, if we post it, they will come. And it's just not enough. We also have to be active. For me, it's much more like a networking event. If I show up at the event, but I stand in a corner, I'm going to get the value of standing in a corner. But if I go to an event and I start walking around the room and going to people where they are and joining their conversations, I'm going to meet a lot more people, and a lot more people are going to meet me. So I really do think it's that, as we talk about the three legs of the stool of, yes, posting content, but you've got to go engage with other people and use those notifications to your advantage. Because every time you engage, you pop up in people's notifications. Now, it's not a guarantee that you get in everyone's notifications, but it's pretty much guaranteed. If you comment on something, you're going to pop up in people's notifications, right? Just look at your own notifications. And then strategically, the way that you're growing your network speaks a lot too, because they can see, who are you connected to? Who are you connected to in my company? Oh my gosh, you're connected to 20 people in my company, and now I got a connection request from you, and I've seen you, I've engaged with you, or you've engaged with me 3 or 4 times. It's using our time wisely to give us the best opportunity to create conversations.
Yeah, so I guess that begs the question, if I dare to ask it, and that is, if you're listening to this and you're a sales manager, or you're a business owner, or even if you're a sales professional that wants to begin the process, how does somebody get started? Who wants to jump in?
Well, I think just to dovetail on that a little bit, the first thing we have to recognize is that the sales process has changed. When I first started selling a long time ago, email and the internet were brand new. So product knowledge was still important in my time as a salesperson. In today's environment, 80% of the selling is done before they engage someone. So if you're spending your time pushing product knowledge out, that's the wrong message to do. You'll still need it when the time is right, but people have already gone online if they're looking for your product, and they've researched it. They've talked to friends. They looked at evaluations and reviews, just like all of you do. Before we buy anything, be it a TV or whatever, we're online and we're searching. And once we need to talk to someone, we're almost ready to make a buying decision, and we need the expert. So you've got to spend your time beginning the cadence, Thomas, that you were talking about, and making it about the person you're talking to and not you. You got to make them the star of the story. You got to show them, give them your expertise. They've already going to go find it. You want them to see you as someone that's going to help them solve their problem, not me get a sale. It's a tough thing to switch in your head, but once you get there, you start realizing you're not giving away free consulting. I know sales managers out there saying, no free consulting. It's already happening. Give that knowledge and attract those people to you to be that knowledge expert.
Yeah.
That is how I would start.
Yep. I agree. And that's why whenever I work with people and I'm helping them form their LinkedIn profile and their messaging, I always say, it's not about you. It's about them. You always have to be thinking outward toward the viewer or the person you're communicating with. And you have to differentiate yourself by humanizing yourself and telling your story and proving your value, so that you become someone that they know understands their business problems and has in the past, or has the expertise or offerings that can help them solve those business problems, right? So we have too many profiles and people on LinkedIn that look at it like it's their mini attribute station, right? It doesn't really tell their story or what value they really bring to the viewer. So I totally agree with you about thinking, what does my customer need? What are they thinking about? What should they be doing now? What should they be thinking about for 6 months from now? What are those thought-provoking things about their industry problems that you can prove an expertise with that can help them?
Well said.
Yeah.
And that way you don't become a one-hit wonder that gets a bluebird or gets lucky. You form relationships that help you keep that lead gen going on and on, because you're that trusted advisor.
So you're
what I try to get the people I work with to think about.
Great point, Susan. I would just, I still want to go down the line to sort of help those that are taking the opportunity to listen, what they can do to get started with the process, right? And how they can start to understand what digital selling is really all about. Because Brandon said it earlier, people don't want their teams playing on LinkedIn, right? So there's an issue right there. And he also mentioned that we don't like the term social selling. Well, why don't we like the term social selling? Because it's been taken out of context, and many organizations think that it's just their people playing on social media, as opposed to doing what it is they're supposed to be doing, right? And it's that context that creates part of the challenge for those leaders, right? So we need to get them out of that thinking and get them into thinking and understanding that this is about reaching people, right? And starting conversations. So how does an organization begin to understand that reality? How do we help them make that happen?
I think the first thing you have to do is remove yourself from the equation. Susan was talking about it earlier. If your emails and your profiles are, I do this, we do this, we're great at that, it's the wrong messaging. So to start, Thomas, you got to go back to the beginning and look at your profiles. Do you have profiles?
Yes.
Do you have your picture on your LinkedIn? I mean, the data is out there that, if you don't have your picture, then your opportunity is going to be much less than if you have a picture. And read it. Is it an I love me story, or is it an I love you story? And you got to start slow. You're going to have to recognize that it takes time. It's not a 5-minute get on LinkedIn, do a quick post. You got to think about your message, and you have to have a plan. No different than cold calling. If you're still cold calling, if you're trying to be effective at it, you're getting your call list ahead of time. You're loading it if you're using an auto dialer, and you sit down and you have that plan. Most people sit down and say, I want to cold call for an hour, and then start looking for numbers to call so they get maybe 10 minutes in. The same thing will happen in the digital sense. You got to plan what you want to do. What industry do you want to focus on this week? What industry next week? And you got to go back. It's fertilizing. It's like growing a garden. You can't just water it. You got to tend to it. You got to grow it. And you got to be patient. That's the hard part for salespeople. You got to be patient.
And I think if I were going to say 3 things I tell people that I coach, first thing is profile. Your profile is the foundation of your LinkedIn brand. I hate when people have team player and out of the box thinker. That doesn't tell me anything about you or how you're going to help me, right? So I like people to tell their story. What got them there? What is that? What are they passionate about? What value do they really bring, right? And then the second thing is post content that is not always around your business. Focus on what industry are you in? What are the challenges that industry is struggling with right now? Post once a week. Find content that resonates with your offerings and your expertise. And then the third thing is what Brandon was talking about. Reach out and connect with people that are your customers, that you think are your best targets, that you want to start that engagement with, to have similar interests and start to educate them on your value. Those are the 3 things. And you don't need to, salespeople are like, well, God, that sounds like I have to take, 4 or 5 hours a week. No, you really don't. You really can do it probably in 30 minutes, 3 times a week. Right? But as their success grows, I find that they're spending more and more time because they're getting results. That makes sense?
Yeah, it does. And I think a lot of it is strategy. And that's where, a lot of teams have been purchasing software thinking that it's going to solve the problem. And software doesn't do it because there is a big change of behavior that needs to take place. Whatever amount of time it's been, I got one today, Mike. I think you alluded to it earlier. I got a really blatant, gross one this morning. Use my LinkedIn inbox to send me a message to tell me how wonderful she was and that here's all the horrible things going on in the world and you need me to solve this. I'm like, stop sending me your unsolicited brochures in my inbox. I don't want it. I don't want it here, especially. Right. So we got to break the habit of doing that. And unfortunately, there's a lot of teams that think that's the way we use LinkedIn. We got to break that habit and start looking at how are other people going to respond to us? And when I look at LinkedIn and what our customers have had success with, it's using LinkedIn more from a prospecting standpoint to generate that first conversation that's giving them a lot more success. And when it comes to sharing content, like you're saying, Suze, I know a lot of salespeople get, like deer in headlights and go, I don't create content. That's not true. Salespeople create content all the time. They respond to emails and they answer questions on calls when they're talking with customers. They're always creating content. So just simply thinking about the questions that are asked of you And answering those questions in the form of a social post is one of the best piece of content they can make, because it comes from them, it comes from their voice, it's not shared from some corporate page, and it demonstrates that they know what they're talking about, or it demonstrates their process of being able to help customers.
Agreed. You know, I want to come clean too. So there was a day, and I've been at
It's
this
about time.
it had to happen, right? There was a day that I was a major cold caller, and I cold called a couple of few hours every day, right? And I mean every day. And at that time and at that stage of my career, cold calling was very impactful. You called 100 people, you reached 30, and you got an opportunity to really present and propose to as many as 10 or 15 of that 30. And that's how it worked. And back in that timeline, that was an incredibly effective way to use your time. But a couple of things. Number one, it was a real skill. And it still is, right? Except you can't get anybody on the other line. But the fact is, when you did get a person on the phone who actually answered, and people answered their phones back then, right? It was a real skill not to do what you just said, Brandon. It's just like with LinkedIn, you know, you connect, so you jump their bones, right? So nice to meet you, John. Buy this because I'm great, right? Well, it's the same thing on the old phone calls that we used to make. When you got Mary on the phone, you didn't suddenly say, hey, Mary, I've got a great product. I need to come down and show you this afternoon. I can be there at 2. We can get the whole thing done by 3, right? That's not how that worked either, right? So there was a method and a process and cadence that we used to that entire process. And you had to get some real skills, right? And you had to help Mary determine whether or not she was even a potential customer in the first place. And if she wasn't, you know, if you were really good at it, you needed to thank her and really appreciate the time that she gave you, right? And help her in any other way that you could and move on. And if not, and there was an opportunity there, you had to recognize how to process that opportunity into an order. There are real skills there, both in terms of listening and asking the right questions. None of that has changed. What's changed is we need to take those same skills and align them with digital and with online conversations rather than the phone. What's changed is this device no longer connects you to people by way of dialing to cold people who don't know you.
Well, I also say you have to take the words I want out of your vocabulary unless they say, I want to help you. So I want time on your calendar. I want to give you this brochure about this product. In the very beginning stages, what does it do to you? It turns you off. You say, forget it. I'm not going to listen to this person. But if you're focused on them, as Mike was saying, and you're really trying to understand them and humanize yourself to them, and you care about solving their problems, and you've got offerings that may be able to help them, maybe not, but that is the road you take on social. That's the road you should take anytime you're trying to sell somebody something, in my opinion. Mike, what do you think of that?
I 100% agree, because the hard part is, again, removing us out of it. You know, we don't get a vote in the conversation. It's got to be about the individual. And both Thomas, you and both Susan said it. Hard thing for salespeople is recognizing not everybody's our client. We think we can sell anybody everything. And once you realize not everybody is your client, your time opens up a little bit. And the concept of cold calling is, first, very few people, there are some people who do enjoy it, just to be fair, but that's the small percentage. So when you're doing it, you're not even your best self, because when you think of how you feel when you answer the call and it is a cold call, if you're like me, I'm annoyed at myself. I'm wondering, how long can until I can hang up? My mom told me to be polite, so I don't want to just hang up on someone. I know that they don't like doing it, so I'm not listening anyway. But you're not in the digital world. You can be your best self. you can have that, excuse me, that conversation. Cold calling, you're projecting. I know I'm annoying you, Thomas, when I got you on the phone, but you got to listen to me, because I can't believe you answered. And guys, I met Thomas 5 years ago when I started my consulting company. He was my coach. And he said, I cold call every day. And I just was like, oh, what if I don't do it? He said, there's another way. And he started introducing me to the digital world, because I am not a good cold caller. And it comes across when I do it. Did it. I haven't done it in years. So you got to recognize who is your client, why do they need me, but you have to let your client discover they need you. You can't tell them. Nobody wants to be told anything. Once you get there, then you're really going to be cooking with hot oil.
I think one of the things that I really like to emphasize with salespeople is thinking about why cold calls used to work, or why cold calls would work. And it didn't matter if it was back in when I started selling, it was cold call was knocking on doors or making a cold call. The reason they work so well, and Thomas, you said the numbers, you make 100 calls, you talk to 30 people. Buyers used to be dependent on salespeople for information.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the key thing that sales leaders and others need to remember, is that was the reason that tactic worked back then. And it's a reason that it doesn't work now, is that buyers don't need salespeople for information. They don't need them. And beyond that, they don't want them for their research unless they want them, if that makes any sense. And the only reason they would want a salesperson to be part of that research is if that salesperson has already demonstrated that they can add value to that process. And a lot of times that demonstration doesn't come in a one-to-one time. It comes through what you publish in social, or articles that you share, or it comes through conversations that you have in commenting on other people's conversations. You have to demonstrate it in advance to be welcomed into what I like to call the buyer circle of trust, because they control it. They have their own technology to keep us out. Like, you think all those emails that your cadences are sending out are getting through? Most of them are going to spam. And most of the ones that even give you an open, say that they're open, they weren't opened by a human being. They were opened by their software, right? It opened it and they saw it just long enough to delete it. So we've got to remember why salespeople were important there, and now know why we're important now. Our importance only comes from demonstrating our importance and being invited into that conversation.
Extremely valid point, right? And I think that's something that most companies and salespeople forget, right? And Mike, you said it best, to dovetail on what Brandon just said. They've made 80% of their journey already by the time they do talk to you. So they already know, and hopefully not more than you, but they already know a lot about it. So now your job is not to sell them on whether they need it, but what it is specifically they need and how you can help them be successful in that process. Now, when you're able to do that, as Brandon illuminates, the next step is a warm phone call or a Zoom call or whatever the step. This is not to say that this thing still doesn't dial, right? Because it actually does, right? So there's nothing wrong with doing that, but now it's a warm call. Now you've said, Mary, it's been great engaging with you. Do you have time for a 5-minute phone call so that we can dig in a little bit more and I can see if we can be of more help for you? Mary says yes, and now you have the phone call, because now it's not a number she wasn't expecting, right? And or you've done it through a quick Zoom session, whatever the case may be. But that's how this all starts. Mary's already, as Brandon so well illuminated, she's already got a lot of the information, right? So now you just need to help her with the rest of the journey and have the credibility to be the person that got to do that in the first place.
Well, and that leads me back to where you were saying before, how does the individual sales rep get started? Well, stats that I see show that 90%, 95% of sales reps have not received any digital training. So we've had this conversation round and round and round why companies don't focus on it and value it. And I don't have the answer to that, but people viewing this, if your companies do not offer it, start educating yourselves. Start to play around with it. Not play, but start to immerse yourself in it. Start to do some searches on potential customers. Start to find content that is interesting. Get started. No one learns this all in a week. We've been doing it many years, all of us, and we still learn things every day. But unless you get started and you start to educate yourself, don't wait for your company, because you're probably not going to get it. And if you get it, you're going to get like a sales navigator license and some feature function and maybe a little help with your profile, but not the real deep of what's the right content, which means short videos, snackable infographics, and one pagers that people can very quickly consume before they move on, not huge white papers. So get started. Start to get your feet wet. And don't wait, because if you're just starting now, I'm sorry to tell you, you're behind.
You know, Susan, you mentioned videos. I know a lot of people are hesitant to do videos because they feel like it has to be a production. Guys, when I do videos, I put my phone out, I stutter, I stammer, I talk over myself, I post it, and those posts get much more reaction than if I'm typing down words. People don't, it doesn't have to be professionally done. They like you. And they identify with you because they're going to stammer and they're going to stutter and they're going to back up and the camera's going to be shaky. But those are how you connect, because you're showing them who you are. We're being real with our clients, and we're showing them it's okay. You know, I'm not going to be, you know, Brad Pitt. I'm not going to have production companies do my videos. 2 minutes is my max, and I'm done. And it's a little scary at first. I know if you're listening and you haven't done one, you're a little scared. But you'll find you're going to get likes. And come on, who doesn't like getting likes or recognition? That's who we are. We're social beings. But do a video. Do it just right on your iPhone or your whatever phone you have. And don't worry about your hair being perfect. I mean, look, nothing pretty about this, but I do it. And it goes on there.
And also your marketing departments, you know, you have the target. It's on your shoulders. If you're not getting the right content, you know, from your marketing departments and other support people, you have every right to say, you know, why don't we try something different? What are our 3 top differentiators for this product? What are our 3 best customer results for this product? You know, start thinking about outcome driven content.
Yeah, Mike, and you got somebody, sorry, whoever that is on the comment in Facebook, for some reason it doesn't pass on who you are, but you can put in the comments if you want who you are. But yeah, Mike, I was going to say on video too, like this person that commented, it shows that you're human. I think that we've gotten to a place where people appreciate authenticity a lot more. They appreciate, I think, you know, I don't know about you guys, but I remember pre-COVID, if somebody was working from home, they did everything they could to pretend like they weren't at home. Right. And then COVID helped us. We're like, yep, here it is. Here's the mess. Here's whatever. Hey, I'm sitting in my kitchen today. My kid's home from school, whatever. It was just whatever. And that authentic, real, this is who I am is totally acceptable now. And you're right. Just start and be consistent. And I think the one thing I tell everybody with video especially, but with creating content and sharing content and starting, is just expect that nobody's going to respond right away. It takes time. I mean, think about yourself and the way you act on the other end. All of a sudden, out of the blue, somebody who hasn't posted before posts. Do you go, ooh, I'm going to jump in there? No, we all like want to protect our ego. We're like, well, what if I say something and no one else does? Or, you know, it's all of that insecurity stuff that we all carry comes out. We've got to get over it and just say, you know, you got to go, you got to go, you got to go. Get a few of your friends in your company or your colleagues, go, hey, we'll all support each other and we'll all go make sure that we, you know, encourage each other with comments and stuff like that. Whatever it takes, but just be consistent and start. I think, as Mike said, just start.
And don't be afraid to use the links to those posts of your video in your one-to-one engagement. I do that if I'm, trying to make a point with someone I'm messaging with who's in my network. I may take the link to to one of my posts and put it right in the messaging and say, you might find this of interest. Our customers don't have all the answers. That's why they're looking for us, right? So don't just think posting your videos. I like to do make it once, utilize it as many times as you can. So utilize it on LinkedIn, utilize it on Instagram and Twitter and other social channels and Facebook. But make sure that what you say has value to the viewer, not a sales pitch for you.
And I want to dovetail off of something that, Brandon said is, partner with some folks so that you're sharing and engaging on each other's
Right.
posts, because that exponentially pushes it out to everybody that they're engaged with. But don't feel bad if you don't get 500,000 views, because the secret about that is those guys are part of what's called a pod. They've connected with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, and they automatically have a system where it's not organic, it's manufactured. If you can get a couple hundred, you're doing awesome. If you can get 20, you're ahead of the game, because those are real people that are engaging with you. Don't go for the hundreds of thousands. It's all fake. Just make it real and you'll get that. Excuse me.
Yeah, the celebrities that are out there, we can't compare ourselves with them. Just like, when my daughters were growing up, I told them, you can't compare yourself to the things that you see on the internet, because it's photoshopped, it's this, that, and you can't compare your real self to other people's projected self. And we can't do that in LinkedIn either. But we can educate ourselves, right? And there's different types of content that we post in any of our social accounts, whether it's LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook. There's different types, and there's great data that shows when we post about our business, unfortunately, it tends to be the least engaged types of post.
Mm-hmm.
But when we curate something and we say something, now just for everybody, my definition of curate isn't, oh, here's an article, let me go post the link. Curate's got to be, go read it. Say something from your own voice about the article. Why is this important? Who is it important to? What are the key topics out of this article that you think are most important? When you curate an article, guess what happens? More people start to engage with it, because it's more human. It's more like somebody, you got 4 or 5 people standing around and they go, hey, Thomas, what do you think about XYZ? And Thomas answers. Thomas wouldn't say, oh, that's a good question. Here's a book, go read it. Right? If he does that, he's going to get the same response. We're all going to go. And that's why, so if we start using our own voice, and it's not hard. And I like to remind salespeople, you answer questions all the time. You respond to things all the time. You just have to fabricate that now and go, hey, 2 days ago, so-and-so asked me this question. How do I turn that into a piece of social content now? Well, quite simple. Answer the question in a public format. As Mike said, turn on your phone. Hey, somebody asked me this question the other day. It's an important question. Here's what I think. If you're more of a writer, then write it. But get started.
Well, and I also think there's a good opportunity to break that print barrier, right? So one way is how Micah said, you do a video. But another way is you've got this great thing called a phone that has the LinkedIn app. I focus on LinkedIn, that you can send an audio message to people. Every person that connects with me, who I ask to connect and they connect with me, they get a short audio message from my app. You can't do it on the platform from your computer, that says, hey, thanks for connecting. I'm delighted and I can't wait to learn more about you. They get to hear your voice. They get to hear the inflection. They get to start to break that print barrier and look at you as a human person. So you've got best practices and cadences and things that will help you that you can reuse, repurpose. And if you're in a team, the whole team can, use it as the base and modify it to their needs. So you're not starting from scratch every single time you do something, right, Brendan? You've got help, and it's not as scary as you think.
Yeah.
I
Hey,
see.
Mike, you want to take? Yeah, we got a question there from Jamie. Thanks so much, Jamie. Mike, you want to answer that?
Yeah. So, Jamie, I don't know if there is a right or wrong. I think weekly is probably not enough just because you want to have yourself out there. Daily might be too much. So, what I normally do if I'm going to do a video campaign is I'll film 2 or 3 and then I'll have them done. So that way, then I'll put it out there. But I think if you do it, get into a cadence that you're comfortable with. But I would do it every other day or every 3 days at a minimum. I think weekly, you're not going to get enough of yourself out there. So, just like anything else, too much is going to be too much, but you don't want to be absent from your client base or your folks you're going to too much either, because you want to stay with them. So I would do it on a 2 to 3 day basis, but you might find you're really enjoying it and do it on different platforms every day.
Well, one of the tips I would tell salespeople is create a social calendar, right? You've got your calendar, you've got your appointments, you've got everything that your sales training is integrated into your day. Add in there your social, and then you won't forget it. And then you can track it, and you can see what posts resonate, and you can just be on top of everything, but integrate it into your selling methodology, right? And you don't always have to video. You can have an art infographic, you can have an article, spice it up, but again, content is king. Don't just post something to post it. It has to have a thought behind it and a message to the viewer.
Wow, what a powerful conversation we're having. I listen to some, and this is maybe a little bit of I don't know, my own perspective, but I watch a lot of webinars and I watch a lot of these events, and very rarely do I see this kind of insightful actual steps that people can actually take to do what it is they need to do to improve their careers and the roles they play in their companies. I would add to what you're saying, guys, because I think the content is so crazy. And I've only recently, as long as I've been doing this, I've only recently crawled a little bit out of one of my boxes, which was not to do video, because I'm not very comfortable with video, as Mike alluded. So I've done a few here and there, and I'm going to be doing more. So I warn the world in advance. I will be doing that. But in any case, it does get a better response. But I want to add to that as we put content out there and people engage with us, don't forget to engage with them. And when you've got a list of the folks that you want to be dealing with, whether it's an existing customer list, whether it's a prospective customer list, whether it's a mix of both, because often that's the way most companies work. You've got existing customers and you've got prospective customers. You need to be seeing what they're doing. What are they saying? What are they sharing? Are they doing videos? Are they putting content out? And jump in and join them and help them in their cause and become part of their network as they become part of yours. And that's what Susan said so effectively earlier. This is not, and so did you, Mike, this is not about me, right? This is about them and your customers and helping them. And when that attitude starts to come through and you start being a productive individual in the entire process, and not just because you're dialing for dollars or fishing for whatever, right? And you become an engaged person and a human being, great things start to happen. And Brandon, I know you've got a story and I'm going to prod you to tell it. But great things happen fast. Yes, it takes time for you to develop the skills, no question about it, and the technique and the cadence that's going to work for you. But great things can happen fast. Brandon, that's your.
But wait, I want to interject one thing here. Salespeople are very competitive. We all know that. It's not a race to how many connections you have. I have a lot of companies will take that as a competitive KPI. It's not about that. It's about adding the right connections the right people to your network for the right reasons. Okay, sorry,
Yeah.
Brandon, go ahead.
Okay, that's right. Well, Jamie, I'm going to take this off and we'll get back to it here in a second. So we'll address polls, but I think the story Thomas is referring to, and correct me if I'm wrong, is somebody that's gone through went through our training program and became a digital seller. The first thing that happened is his commission started going up, started talking to more people, increased his first conversations by well over 100%. I think his specific numbers were that we're creating more booked meetings that created more sales opportunities, which closed more deals. And this is in a 6-month period. This isn't like it didn't take a year. This is started, two months into this thing, he was starting to roll. Well, not only was he making more money, but then he started getting recruited. And the message I got this week was, I got to tell you, thank you so much, because not only did you help me make more money and I sold better, but I've got more opportunities in my current job and opportunities of people recruiting me than I know what to do with now. And it's because he became a digital seller and he's standing out from the crowd. And Susan, what you talked about, if you're not doing this now, you're behind. He's done a great job. I mean, he's younger. He's mid to late 20s. And he's so excited about his sales career now, where a year ago he was like, do I want to do this my whole life?
Well,
This
and
is
if you
killing
don't
me.
believe us, just go Google social selling stats and you'll be reading for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. So who I want to address, Jamie posted in there, he thinks polls are great for engagement. I don't use polls a lot. I did one, maybe two over the last 6 months. Partly for me, I think it just takes more time for me to come back around to it once it's done. But what do you guys think?
I love polls. I think they're fun. I think the questions are make you think some. And I think you're able to see how others are in line with, if you're right or wrong, not right or wrong, but what the other thoughts are, because you'll see the percentages right after you participate in the poll. So I'm guilty of never doing them, but I participate in them all the time. So do as I say, not as I do. But Jamie, I think polls are awesome.
I think that anything that starts a conversation is awesome. And if it's a poll, or if it's a video, or if it's an article, or if it's jumping in on one or all of the above with respect to somebody else has done, that's the point. And that's what we're here to talk about today. Cold calling doesn't do any of that.
No.
Cold calling will not give you that opportunity, period, full stop, right? But this will, right? And that's what we're saying. So for those that do want to pound out 1,000 calls a week, right? Listen, all the power to you, because I can't believe your perseverance and your strength of character. I literally, even at this stage, I couldn't do that. I just honestly couldn't. And this is coming from somebody who pounded, and I made hours of calls every day for years, and it brought results, trust me. But I know better now, right? And I know that would have to be multiplied by 10 to get anywhere near those results today, and I'm not doing that. So this is the secret sauce, guys. This is what you can really start to do. But is, there's a technique, there's a process, there's cadence, and there's ways you have to do this properly to get the impact that you're looking for. You've heard bits and pieces of it today, but at the end of the day, can you teach yourself? I think you can probably bump around and learn some key things based upon what we're saying and what you can hear other experts talk about. I think you can, but can you really get to where you want to be quickly in that way? I'm going to say I don't think so. I'm going to say you need some kind of training, right? And you do need training, both individually and as an organization, or whatever you need to do to make that happen. Because ultimately it's in your hands, not somebody else's. It used to be that this kind of training, A, it was very hard to come by. B, it was extremely expensive. And then C, it was usually just focused on one narrow aspect, right? For example, LinkedIn training, which is great, but it's only LinkedIn training, right? It's not digital selling, right? And so you need to have that robust training. And today we offer that, and we offer an opportunity to do that, even at a very cost-effective way for single sales professionals. So there is a way to do these things. So what we really are here to help you do is to understand you can do it. And all these things we've been talking about, they're right there in front of you. The technology and the digital world we live in today makes this easy. What's hard isn't what's in front of you. What's hard is what's in here, because you got to get out of your box. And I'm trying to get out of some of mine too. So listen, I understand. I really, really do. Go ahead. Who wants to add to that?
Well, we hit the hour mark. We
we?
can add to it, or we could wrap it up. I'm pretty sure people might
I
be
think we
done
kind
with
of
us
said
for the
everything that
day.
needed to be said. So we're going to
Yeah.
have more of these, right? So we're going to
Yeah.
have more great conversations about other parts of and pieces of digital enablement and selling. So
Yep.
I think we covered a lot today.
We did. And along the bottom is a guide that Susan put together, which is a guide that you can help you make your LinkedIn profile more robust and use it to create conversations or book meetings. So if you want to get that, you can go to Funnel Amplified / there. The links are everywhere. So sorry, it's a long URL, but the links are going to be in all the chats or all the comments of every place. So you can always just click the link and go get that if you would like. Other than that, Thomas, what's our next topic? We're back up in 2 weeks.
That's right. Leadership. It's about leadership in a social age, in a digital age, and how to use digital to exploit, and that's the wrong word, to really develop your leadership skills and to be a servant leader on social. Yes. And we've got a top person from one of the top leadership groups in the USA joining us to do that. And that's Adam Ritchie.
Excellent. Well, Mike, thanks for joining us today.
Great. I appreciate it.
Susan, as always, you want to summarize and send us off?
Get started. Use the guide to beef up your LinkedIn profile and jump in and start fishing in digital waters.
There you go. All right, everybody. Happy Friday.
Thanks for joining us, Mike.
We'll see you next
You
time.
bet. My pleasure.
Bye. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, everybody.